right. I got this really great email from one of my fans who wrote in with a couple of really awesome questions. And I just thought it'd be really fun to jump on here and just answer those questions live because I know he is not the only one of you out there who is struggling with this really common challenge of just feeling like he and his wife are on total different pages when it comes to sex, mismatched libido. But what's really interesting is there's actually a lot of stuff going on here that's really relevant, and I think a lot of reasons for why there's this difference, and it's going to be relevant to talk about. So let me kind of let you know what he wrote. This is just sort of a nutshell summary. He said, "My wife, we'll call him Jim, not his real name, but we'll call him Jim for now." And he says, "My wife and I have been happily married for about 11 years, and we currently have three young children with a fourth baby due in a few months. We have a strong marriage, but our biggest challenge is significant difference in our desire for sexual intimacy." So she says that she's tired, she's touched out, obviously, with all those little, their kids are quite young, touched out, stressed, lacking the energy. And these are kind of her reasons for this, low interest in sex. Totally understandable, right? So I'm trying my best to be understanding and compassionate about the stress she's under. But I want to honor my own desire to prioritize our relationship, including our sexual intimacy, to ensure we're deeply bonded and joyful, not just roommates or co parents. All right. So here is Jim's question. So, what he asks is lacking passion and mutual sexual desire just the reality that I need to accept at this time in our life and marriage? Or is it possible to still have a passionate sex life with young children? And if that's possible, what would you recommend in getting there? Okay, so what I want to let you know, Jim, is especially for women, for a lot of women, our libido and our sexual desire, our interest, desire in sex is oftentimes highly connected to our environment. So that means what is going on or context. If you're familiar with Emily Nagoski's work, she wrote a wonderful book called Come As You Are, and she talks a lot about contextual desire. And I think it's something like, oh, there's a high percentage of women that really fall into this category. I can't remember exactly what the percentage is, but context. So it has a lot to do on what's going on in the environment. So anytime you hear that word context, I just want you to think about what is happening in the environment. Context can also be our internal environment. So that can look like if things in your environment have changed, such as having like wow, all under the age of 5. Your 3 kids are under the age of 5, and she's pregnant with like a new baby due at any minute. So these things change context. It can change her ability to have interest and libido. There's also a lot of other things that happen contextually, environmentally. How she feels about her own body is a big one. And then you also mentioned that she's under a lot of stress. So stress is like the biggest killer of sexual arousal because it increases our cortisol levels. So there's that aspect happening as well, not to mention probably the hormonal shifts that she's experiencing from being pregnant and then also maybe still possibly even still breastfeeding. I'm not sure. But being pregnant and then having kids, the hormonal cocktail gets really changed up, obviously, and that can have an impact on her sex drive. So your question about is lacking passion and mutual sexual desire just the reality that I need to accept at this time in our lives and marriage? On one hand, yes. Yes, it is. It's just you are in a phase. On the other hand, there's a danger of getting stuck in that place and never actually finding your way out of it. So, here's in the next piece of your question is, if her mind is fairly set, what do I do in the meantime with my sexual desire? Such a good question. I will talk about that. It's my personal conviction that it's not right to take my sexual desire anywhere else besides my wife. Bravo for you. I agree with that, unless you have consensual agreement there. So do you have any recommendations on what to do with my desire when she's not available? So you're not alone, and I know probably a lot of y'all watching this can relate to one side or the other. And One of the things I wanna say is that I think especially when you have kids, and if you don't, but you're going to have kids, do this before the kids get here. You do have to prioritize the marriage. You have to prioritize the intimacy in the marriage, otherwise it gets absolutely taken over by kids, household duties, work, day-to-day life, and you start to just feel like roommates with your partner. So my recommendation is, first of all, it is challenging when the kids are so young, but you have to be intentional about this. It might not be the kind of thing where you're able to do this every single week, but can you do it once a month where you hire a babysitter? Do you have any friends or family members that you could drop the kids off over there and have private time at home? Could you even rent a hotel room one night a month so that you are out of your familiar setting? We tend to forget this also. My cat is being crazy right now. Go on. We also tend to forget this. Men, don't forget to date your wife. No matter that you've been married for a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, the dating doesn't stop once you marry her. And I see this happen a lot. And this is a lot of the reason, it can be part of the reason why women might lose interest. Why doesn't she want you? Why doesn't she jump in your bones like she did when you were dating? Lots of reasons for that. But take her out, get her out of the familiar setting, get her out of the home where there's all the obligations and everything's familiar and all the patterns are set. Do something fun like you did when you were first meeting. So date your wife, men, date your wife. So what do you do with your sexual desire in the meantime? Oh my gosh. I don't recommend repressing it. So I've seen this happen where a lot of men just feel like they're being a burden on their wives, or they're so tired of being rejected all the time that they just shut their sexual desire down. They start to maybe even feel ashamed of it, or maybe you've been shamed, which is really awful. I'm sorry if that's happened to you. But do your best not to shut down your sexual desire. So we do have other ways of being, if intercourse is off the table, there's other ways of being intimate. There's ways to do mutual masturbation, for example. Oops, don't know if I can say that on social media. I'm streaming on YouTube. It's good on Substack. Mutual self pleasure. There's other body parts that we can use on other body parts that doesn't necessarily involve intercourse happening. Sensual massages, sharing sexual fantasies, so many things that we can do that we tend to forget. It's almost like once intercourse is on the table, we forget about all the other things that were available to us before that was an option. So it's always helpful to have lots of things in your toolkit. And what kinds of things can you explore together where you're still investing in the sexual relationship and still keeping the marriage sacred? It is so easy for life to take over, especially when there's the demands of young children. So if we don't get we do have to get much more intentional about it, especially when there's kids around. Because I know a lot of people say, like, oh, it's so not romantic. Like, I don't want to have to plan sex. I just want it to be spontaneous. Well, okay, great. And then you're going to end up having no sex. So planning sex does not have to be a buzzkill. It doesn't have to be unromantic. It can be very fun and very sexy. It can be something to look forward to. You can build anticipation about it. So plan sex, Jim. Put that on the calendar and see if your wife can get on board, or even I used to even just call this like intimacy time, where you get, take all your clothes off, eye contact, there is no talking allowed, and you're just there, skin to skin, eye to eye, heart to heart, with no pressure for it to have to lead to anything necessarily explicitly sexual. But what absolutely isn't happening is talk, 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 right? She's going to be up in her head wanting to talk, talk, talk. There's no talking. It's eye to eye, breath to breath, heart to heart, body to body, skin to skin, and just having that intimate time together with no pressure for it to have to turn into something sexual. So that is another way to not shut off your desire. I would also recommend learning some breathing practices, how to actually circulate that sexual energy through the body, so it's not just, like all this tension and anxiety and this pressure you have to get off. There are practices out there for men to learn how to circulate that sexual energy throughout the body so that it gives you more energy and more vitality, and you don't sort of have that gnawing urge to get it off. Okay, so one last question here that I want to answer from Jim. Thank you so much for writing in, by the way. If anyone would like to have their question answered on Sex Talk Cafe Live, you can feel free to message me here on Substack. Let me know what your questions are, or here in the comments on this YouTube video. Drop in the comments. What topics would you like to hear? What's your question? I'd love to answer it for you here on Sex Talk Cafe Live. All right, so Jim, your last question is, in general, I think I place a higher priority on our marriage, relationship, and connection more highly, and she prizes the kids and the house more highly. What would you recommend to help us with our difference in priority? Well, yes, and I think I just answered that. It is all important, but I can also see how it can be very, very easy for a lot of women to not feel like she can relax unless she knows the house is like the dishes are done and the toys are picked up and the kids are in bed and asleep. And so some of what's going on there is her need. It's obviously a need for order and to have things done and complete, which that can very much get in the way. There's a real skill, women. If you're a woman watching, there's a real skill in being able to just drop it and let it go and just drop into the moment instead of having to have your entire to-do list checked off before you can be intimate. That's another live stream. Maybe I'll talk about that on another Sex Talk Cafe Live. But also what happens in our brains as women is we need time to come out of that mode where we're in the um it's the prefrontal cortex, right? Where we're in thinking, planning, and doing, and also plugged into our environment. Uniquely, biologically, and evolutionarily, as women, we're wired to sense everything in our environment. And that comes back from the hunter and gatherer days when women were the gatherers. We wanted to have very diffuse awareness so we could sense where the berries were in the forest, or feel into where the kids were at any one moment. So we have that literally wired into our system as women, which is an amazing, amazing, amazing talent and skill. But it can also get in the way when our partner is wanting to be intimate with us because she is plugged into her surroundings in a way that you probably don't really quite understand. Men are wired a little bit different. They're the hunter. And again, that is just literally from our evolutionary and biological standpoint. It's not something that just because like women's lib happened, back in the 70s that now we don't have that anymore. It doesn't change that quickly. It's 10,000 years of evolving in this way. So it can be very hard for her to shut that part of her brain down and to pull her awareness out of all the areas in the home that she's plugged into or in her life that she's plugged into and come all the way just into her own body and into her own sensations, slowing down and helping to actually feel what's happening, sensations, emotions. That's the route. So, one of the things that you can do to help her, Jim, when you are taking this intimacy time, which you've scheduled on your calendar by now, I hope, as per my recommendation, is you can help guide her back into her body. So, her tendency might be to be distracted or to be worried about the kids or to want to start talking. And what I want you to do is just invite her to slow. We're going to take all the time you need, give her time, slow down, no talking. If she's open to it, give her a sensual massage and call her awareness to your hands, the point of contact of your hands on her skin. And don't go straight for the sexual stuff. Just bring her into her body. So one of the types of touch that can be really helpful for this is really firm, like earthing or grounding touches. So if you take both your hands, a nice firm pressure, and just applying pressure along the back, along the legs, nice, firm, slow, even static. So not lots of movement, but sort of pressing with your weight, even your whole body, leaning your body weight onto her. So that helps to soothe and calm the nervous system. It's one of the reasons why we swaddle babies, infants, when they're little, and why that can help soothe them and stop them from crying, because this can have a very soothing effect on her nervous system and can help to reset that stress response and reduce the cortisol levels in the body. And this intimacy time, which you have planned and put on your calendar, also helps to increase the oxytocin levels because we're coming into the bonding through the eyes, the breath, heart to heart, body to body. It actually will stimulate oxytocin, which is a wonderful hormone for stress relief. So those are my tips for Sex Talk Cafe Live here. Thanks so much for watching. And this was my first go trying to live stream on both YouTube and on Substack. So I think it worked out okay, but I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of this lesson today. Let me know what your questions are because I'm going to be dropping in here with you on these lives regularly. I don't wanna commit myself yet to how regularly or which day, but I my plan is to be here with you answering these types of things with you live, and I wanna know what you want. What do you wanna know? Let me know, drop it in the comments, like and subscribe, and I'll see you back here next time.